It's good to see you,
together our opening statement.
There is only one presence and one power in my life and the universe, God.
Amen. This is our Christ candle, which represents that divine essence, our divine potential within each and every one of you. Let us say together our vision and mission statement.
Centered in God, we inspire spiritual transformation, creating a world of love, peace, and prosperity. We are an inclusive spiritual community, inspiring, awakening, and serving with love.
The children's blessing. Of course, let us think about those precious children in our lives, in our families, and the equally precious children in the world. By affirming together this blessing,
we love you, we bless you, we behold the Christ in you. We accept you just the way you are. Walk in beauty, you are divine.
We're going to continue with our service. We're going to sing I Am Alive by Donna Michael. I know it says Christ Pianist to me in the words sometimes. So it's not really a surprise. It's just, there you go. And it's just I am alive and you are alive, you're alive. So just all the words. Here we go. I am alive. I am alive. I am alive in this world. I am alive. I am alive. I am alive in this world. And I shine. And I shine. And I shine so bright. And I shine. And I shine. And I shine so bright. I am alive. I am alive. I am alive in this world. I am alive. I am alive. I am
Oh, that was wonderful. You know, we are so blessed to have such a fabulous music team. Very appreciate that.
Good morning, everyone. So happy to be with you here on this beautiful day. One of my favorite quotes from A Course in Miracles says that every time we come together, it is a holy encounter. And so this morning, we're not just a group of people meeting here in this building on top of this mountain. We've actually come together this morning, orchestrated by Spirit, being exactly where we're supposed to be. Isn't that nice to know? So wherever your mind is right now, maybe you're already at lunch, or maybe you're still at breakfast. As best we can, let's all bring our energy right here and right now, because this is the holy instant. This is the time where all of our power lies. So I invite you to completely relax, knowing that you are here by divine appointment, that this is a holy encounter. As a matter of fact, this group of people in this space and this time will never, ever happen exactly like this again. That's how magnificent this moment is. We have been brought together to remind each other of our magnificence. We've been brought together to see the face of God in each other, and thus remind ourselves that we are also the face of God. So we're going to take a time of meditation. Sometimes we call this contemplation, meditation, mindfulness, whatever phrase we use. It's a very simple process of just letting go as best you can of all of your thoughts and ideas and judgments and fears. As best you can, allowing yourself to become completely empty. Empty of thought, empty of ideas, empty of mind chatter. So I'd invite you to allow your physical body to relax. Give yourself permission to completely surrender to this moment. Everything is going to get done. There's an entire conspiracy for you in the universe to help you get things done in the time they need to be done. So just relax. Feel your body firmly planted in the pew. Feel yourself supported. Feel the love in this room coming from the people sitting around you. Feel your legs completely relax and surrender, releasing any tension. Release any tension in your abdomen, your chest. Feel your shoulders gently drop with the natural force of gravity. Begin to feel your face soften. To become present here and now. Let your body relax. Surrender.
And as you do, begin to consciously pay attention to your breath. Breathing in deeply and watching your breath consciously as it comes into your lungs. And then exhaling, and then once again watching your breath as it leaves your body. Use your breath as a place to focus. If your mind is still distracted by thoughts or ideas or concerns, just simply watch your breath. Focus on it. And realize that even while you sleep, there is a force that loves you so much that it breathes your lungs and beats your heart without any effort on your part. Continue to watch your breath and begin to feel this sense of stillness and peace that only comes from within you. For within you is a vast source of peace, of love, of stillness. Within you, at the core of your being, beyond your body, beyond anything that you see in this world, is your true essential self, which is created in the likeness and image of God. And no matter what has transpired in your life and what experience you've had on your journey, this, your true self, remains whole and holy and complete and perfect, completely untouched by anything that has happened in this temporary world. There is a place within you where nothing is impossible. There is a place within you that knows nothing of sadness or sorrow or sickness or death. There is a place within you that only knows the love and peace of God. So we ask ourselves, why don't we always feel this love and this peace? It's because we have chosen to look out into the world and see what's happening there. The peace is within us, within, in the stillness and in the silence. So we take this time together as a spiritual family to begin to move into that sacred, deep space within. Begin to let your mind unwind. If you notice any thoughts appearing, just simply allow them to be there. And realize that you have the choice for them to fall away. You have the power and the choice for your mind to become empty, open, empty. Begin to notice the space between your thoughts. This sacred space of nothingness. For there's a gap between your thoughts and the stillness. And in this gap is the doorway to your true essential self. A part of you that is timeless and ageless. Forever loving, forever loved. Safe. Held by grace. Perfectly in the mind of God. This is the only thing that is real about you. For everything you see in this world will disappear. Even the brightest and oldest star will someday extinguish and go out. The only thing that remains is your true, essential self, an extension of God. This true self is within you right now in this moment. We reach it as we move into that silent space between our thoughts, this gap. Continuing to breathe. Give yourself permission to completely surrender to this holy instant. In the stillness you find peace. In the stillness you find God. In the stillness you find yourself. Breathing in the very breath of God, the life of God, and the love of God. To move into the sacred, beautiful, and holy silence. From the sacred space, you're only left with gratitude. Not only for what we have, but more importantly for who we are. May our minds awaken to the truth of who and what we are as blessed, beloved children of God. As we give this time over to Spirit, knowing that whatever needs to be said will be said, whatever needs to be heard will be heard. To listen to this wise voice within. Thank you, God, for this amazing, unconditional love. And so it is. Amen.
Today I want to talk about a guy named Viktor Frankl. Is anybody familiar with Viktor Frankl? Oh, wow. Well, then I've got to make sure my facts are correct. That's why I brought my paper up here. I usually don't use notes, but when I do quotes, I like to have notes so that I, say them correctly. So Viktor Frankl, if you're not familiar with him, he wrote, what he's really most known for is his book, Man's Search for Meaning, which has sold over 12 million copies. And this book came from his experience in the Nazi concentration camps. Unfortunately, he was rounded up, and his entire family was rounded up during this horrific time in our world's history, and all of his family perished, I believe, except for one brother. And because he was smart and a scientist and a doctor, he was spared, and he was used to do certain things, and he was worth something to the people that were imprisoning him, so he was able to actually escape. And when he emerged from the concentration camps, he realized a couple things. For one, when I think about Viktor Frankl, and I've read his book numerous times, I just stop complaining about my little pitiful things, Sometimes we really complain and get upset about the smallest little pitiful things, and I think, man, if this guy can make it through such horrific conditions and then come out, not only survive, but come out feeling grateful and ready to serve the world, well, my little issues are really nothing, And this amazing book gives the story about how he actually survived the concentration camps. Now, there's one thing to survive something like that. It's another thing to survive that and then thrive afterwards. Many people survive ordeals in their life, but it leaves a mark, and they're not really able to move on. Some of you may have experienced that before, and maybe there's something you've experienced that you haven't truly let go and moved away from. That's part, sometimes, of human nature, because there's different levels of how we exist. There's the drama level, and that's where you're totally unconscious and you believe that the world is doing things to you. Everybody remember this stage? And you had to blame everybody. If she had not done this, if they had not done that. And so there's this unconscious blame level that we go through. Then we move into a space where we become aware of other people and how we interact with them. And in that space, we begin to survive a little bit. So we're still dealing with drama. Anybody live a totally drama-free life? Well, in this stage, we still live with some drama, but a lot of our time is consumed putting out the fires and dealing with the drama. You kind of remember that stage of life? But there's a beautiful stage that comes after that, and that's where you begin to let go of all the drama, and you get up with a purposeful, intended day of how you would intend it to be, and you begin to actually thrive instead of survive. There's a huge difference between surviving and thriving. And that's what's so remarkable about Viktor Frankl's story, is many other people survived the Holocaust, but not many of them thrived in that way. And the reason I use him as an example, it's such an extreme example, but that's also so important for our life when we go through something, when we experience something that seems horrific or makes us grieve, how we react afterwards. And that's what this whole talk is about. It's called Seeing Beyond Circumstances, because this is the way that Viktor Frankl not only survived the concentration camps, but thrived afterwards and became a servant to the world, and literally changed the way that people view certain things, in science even. He was a smart guy. And the way he did this, if you're in a situation that you have no control over, you either have to rebel against it and resist against it, or you just accept it. And he just accepted his circumstances and realized that he had the ability to look beyond his circumstances to something greater than what he was viewing at that moment. And that's so important for all of us to get a grasp on this idea about how we can see beyond circumstances, because I think that seeing beyond circumstances is the only way that we'll ever really find peace and happiness. That's why I did the meditation specifically like I did today. I talked about the temporary world and about our circumstances. We should all be grateful that our world here is temporary. Because although there's a lot of love here, and we can choose to seek God in everything, and we're going to be singing a song to affirm that shortly, we can see God in everything. Everything that we see in this world will pass away. And the only real thing about you is your spirit. Do you realize that you are the beloved, holy child of God? Do you realize that you're holy? It's hard actually to accept in some ways to even hear that. So I want us to say that together. I'm going to say it, I want you to repeat it after me. And see if it brings up something within you, okay? And we'll chat afterwards. No, we really won't. But, so I'm going to say I'm holy, and I want you to repeat it. I am holy.
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 I am holy. We have lied to ourselves so much, the opposite of that, and told ourselves we were not that. Ernest Holmes, who wrote The Science of Mind. Anybody familiar with The Science of Mind? That's just what the book, if you're not, you should read it. Anybody that loves metaphysics, Ernest Holmes in 1920 wrote a book called The Science of Mind, which now the Centers for Spiritual Living, used to be called Religious Science, now the Centers for Spiritual Living, that's David Leonard's spiritual center over here, is based on this book, The Science of Mind. And this guy, Ernest Holmes, was brilliant. He brought all these ideas from Eastern, but also Christianity, and he weaved together this beautiful book. It's a big book. It's like a big textbook. Louise Hay was influenced by Science of Mind. She was what they call them practitioners, what we call prayer chaplains. They call them practitioners. Yesterday we were talking at the board meeting, and instead of affirmative prayer, they used the word treating, because Ernest Holmes believed that your mind is sick and has to be treated. So a mind treatment is like affirmative prayer. It's affirming that what is already there is there. And I always have to tell people at my center in New Orleans is that we always have to make sure that we say affirmative prayer instead of just prayer, because affirmative prayer states the truthful fact that we've already been given everything and we don't have to ask for anything. We just have to affirm it for ourselves. And in Science of Mind in this group, which is, I consider like the sister or brother group of unity, and I've spoken in both back and forth. It's a very similar idea. Maybe the languaging is a little bit different. But instead of prayer, they have this mind treatment where you sit with someone like you would with a chaplain, and they literally help you to see the truth about yourself. Because I think prayer is just simply knowing the truth for someone when they're temporarily unable to see it for themselves. I love that definition of prayer. Just think about that. Knowing the truth for someone when they are temporarily not able to see it for themselves. And of course, the miracle says it even more than that. It says when two people come together, the one that is most sane can do the most helpful. It can be the most helpful. But one of the things that, one of the words that's used in the Centers for Spiritual Living is treat, then move your feet. And we talked about that yesterday. It's like you can plan all you want and you can affirm, but eventually you got to move your feet and go. And I just kind of love that idea, treat and move your feet. Well, Ernest Holmes was such a wise man and very generous man. As a matter of fact, just like the Fillmores, he had no interest in starting a church or a religion at all. As a matter of fact, he forbade anyone from having a church called Science of Mind, where we went while he was alive. He had education centers, which I think is really cool. And what this came from, is a little bit of New Thought history, is it was kind of a backlash from the Pentecostalism that happened right after the turn of the century when everything was about emotion. So you would go to the church service, and I've been in these services. My dad was a Pentecostal preacher, and you would really feel this authentic connection to the divine, and you would feel there was a lot of emotion, but then you got up Monday morning and you didn't have any tools to make your life better. And eventually that feeling you have on Sunday wore off. It was like having a wonderful, beautiful, cosmic drink, non-alcoholic, that just made you feel really good, but then the effects wore off after a little while. And so Ernest Holmes had this idea, we need to not start another church. We've got way too many churches, but we need to set up education centers to begin to educate people about the nature of God and to get rid of the superstition. That was his main goal, is to say there's too much superstition around God. It should be the most important belief in our life. Even if you don't believe in God and you're an atheist, still your non-belief in God has something to do with God. So he said the most important thing in our life is based on superstition. So many things are based on superstition. If you pray hard enough, if you do something, I mean, so many crazy things about prayer. It's almost like Wayne Dyer used to say, a lot of people think that God is like a big, huge Coke machine. If you put enough quarters, then you get a Coke out, if you beg hard enough. And Ernest Holmes was like, we need these educational centers. Now, the funny thing about it, I guess you would say it's funny, it's interesting, is, the people that were attracted to this, which there were millions of them, did not start churches, because he said we're going to have schools of learning. Well, of course, about the minute he passed away, churches sprang up everywhere. And thus we have now the Centers for Spiritual Living. And there was a great purpose in that because, our society, Sunday morning is God time. That's what I call it. No matter what your religion is, unless you're Latter-day Saints or a few others, but in our collective consciousness in our country, Sunday morning is that time, no matter what your faith is, where you come together. So I think they were actually smart to do that because it created a time. They still have the schools, just like Unity has schools of learning. They still have the schools, but they also now have these Sunday morning services, and that's where people really get to connect, like you guys are connecting here. And Ernest Holmes wrote this beautiful saying, which I'm going to read to you, and I brought the quote for that because it's way too much to memorize and say correctly, which has affected me very deeply ever since I read it maybe 15 years ago. And it has to do with how to see beyond circumstances. And just like we said, I am holy. Did anybody feel some interesting feelings when we said I am holy? We could have like a whole session about that. A talk session about that. Because it's not something that we normally say to ourselves. You usually get up in the morning and look in the mirror and say like, hey, how you doing, sexy? You're holy. Or something like that. Well, you should be. Why not? So, this is the quote I was going to tell you, and I just love this. And it's about lying to ourselves, which is interesting. It's called, this is Ernest Holmes, I Keep the Promise. I shall keep the promise that I have made to myself. I shall never again tell myself that I am poor, sick, weak, nor unhappy. I shall not lie to myself anymore, but shall daily speak the truth to my inner soul, telling it that it is wonderful and marvelous, that it is one with the great cause of all life, truth, power, and action. I shall whisper these things into my soul until it breaks forth into songs of joy with the realization of its limitless possibilities. I shall assure my soul. I love that. And this line, which affected me so much, I shall not lie to myself anymore. I never really heard it put exactly that way before. And I realized how much I was lying to myself about my true nature and believing it. I was lying and believing those lies. And what happened to Viktor Frankl when he was in the concentration camp was the situation was so extreme, he had to quickly learn to look beyond those lies, to look beyond the circumstances of our lives, and to see who he really was. And as I said before, I believe it is the true source of peace in our life for us to be able to look beyond the circumstances that are happening in our life. To look beyond it and to see into the being of what's happening there. If, for instance, let me use an example. If someone is saying something about you, maybe right to your face. Normally we have that knee-jerk reaction, and if they're being critical, or just the fear comes up and we just want to punch them in the face or do something, or whatever. Maybe that's a little bit too much, but we do have a reaction to it. And when we learn to see beyond the circumstances, there's a process that we can do where we can actually look at that person, hear what they're saying, and understand that what they're saying is coming from their own fear, that it has nothing to do with me, and that within them is this vital source of energy that is just as holy as me. That's an example of seeing beyond the circumstances. So I'm not denying that this person is saying something, whatever it may be. I'm acknowledging it, but I'm looking beyond what they're saying, and I'm seeing within them. I'm seeing who they really are and looking beyond the circumstances. How many times have you been in your life, had something, and you've said this when something is going on, I will not make it through this. I won't make it through this. This is too much. I won't survive this. I won't recover. Well, guess what? You're sitting here today and you recovered. You made it through. And isn't it funny how, I'll speak for myself, how hard-headed I am, that no matter how many times that Spirit has come through for me when I thought I was in my darkest hour, I still don't trust it. I still don't trust that the next time it's going to work out. You understand? You get what I'm saying? You'd think when you look back over everything that has happened in our lives and how it's all taken care of itself, and sometimes very beautifully in ways we never even expected, that it's always going to be that way, that Spirit has our back. But still that human nature sometimes comes up with fear, and that's the part of us that's looking only at the circumstances. Most of the things that you're worried about today and a year from now, you won't even remember. You won't even know that you worried about them or were concerned about them. That's how small the circumstances of our life are. Now, sometimes bigger things happen, and this also applies to big things as well. It's sometimes longer process if we have, for instance, a loved one pass away, or a beloved pet, or, sometimes I get more upset thinking about my cats passing than I do about people passing. And my cats are like 4 and 2 years old, but, I'm traveling more down than I was, and I was like, oh my goodness, my babies are home, and now Oliver's already like 3, and I wonder how long he's going to live, and and I'm like drive myself crazy, more than I would do people, And whenever something big like that happens, sometimes it takes longer. It takes a longer process to really see beyond the circumstances. As I said before, one day, I don't know if you've heard this yet or not in your life, but you won't always be here. One day your body will cease functioning. Anybody heard that? Heard about this?
Death and taxes.
Right? So then what happens? I laughed hysterically once, and I had a dream about this person, someone that I love dearly, and he passed back in 1995, and I was given, because he was a little estranged from his family at the time, I was given the lovely role of closing out all his bank accounts and doing all this stuff for him. And I laughed so hard one time. He had a P.O. box in New Orleans, and I went to the P.O. box, and he had passed, it's been maybe 2 or 3 months, and I opened this letter. I was trying to go through everything to make sure there were important documents. I opened this letter. It said, I'll say a different name. Dear Mr. Smith, if you don't pay this credit card payment within 60 days, you will be reported to the recovery agencies. Your credit account will be sent to collections, and your credit score will be ruined. And I laughed hysterically. He's not even in this world anymore.
No threatening.
Good luck, yeah. And what it did was it helped me in that moment, and I didn't look at it this way then, but it helped me to see beyond the circumstances and say, wow, these little things that are so worrisome to us are just small little things. And to begin to close out, it is the way that we find peace. I know that it is for me. When I'm able to look into the world and see that everything that I see is temporary. And that means what we call the good and the bad, which those are all just judgments. When we call things good or bad. Bad just means Spirit is opening a wonderful opportunity for me, but I don't like how it's unfolding, so that's bad. And good is when it's happening just like I wanted it to, so this is good. But we say this all the time, Unity, it's all good, it's all God. That's not just like a bumper sticker, it's the truth. And it is the way to find the peace within us, to begin to get in touch with that part of us that's timeless and ageless. I have been doing this more than ever. I've been a meditator for the last 15 years, but quite honestly, because I got busy, I would skip it sometimes, and I realized that I was feeling off and things at my spiritual center. Some wonky things happened, and I was like, wait a minute, what's happening here? And I realized that there was a part of me that had lost touch with that. There's a saying, and I don't even know where it originates from. I think it's Buddhist. I'm not sure though, but it says, you should get up and meditate for 20 minutes. And if you don't have time to meditate, you should meditate for an hour. Get a hold of that idea. And the reason I'm giving this talk is because it is what's happening in my life right now. I was drawn back to, once again, just watching basic meditation videos like a beginner. Sometimes it's good for us to throw away all the stuff we think we know, with all of our knowledge and all the books we read, and just start over like we're beginners. Just start over like we're beginners. Another Buddhist tradition in some of the sects is that they write their life as a Bible all during the year. All their spiritual truths. They write them down. You know what they do at the end of the year? Burn it. Burn it. I hope that I don't believe a year from now what I believe right now. I hope that my mind is expanded with so much love and peace and joy and wisdom and knowledge and love for others that I'm about to explode. And this is the way to peace. And as I said, I've been going back like a beginner on YouTube, watching some meditation videos, just basic ones, and just going back to the basics. 20 minutes in the morning, no matter what. No matter what. And I do 20 minutes in the afternoon around 3 o'clock and take a nap. No matter what, I was telling Olga about my naps. It's nothing better than taking a little afternoon nap after meditation. And it has profoundly transformed my sense of well-being. And what it has done mostly, it has helped me to continually see beyond the circumstances. Things that are unfolding in front of my eyes, I no longer make them important or real. I allow them to be and don't deny, but I see beyond the circumstances and begin to see the eternal. The only part of me that is real, and the only part of you that is real. You are a beloved, holy, magnificent child of God. This is the truth about you. This is the truth about me, and so it is. Namaste.
Well, we're going to continue the service, and we're going to stand up and sing our next song by Jack Fowler. This is all right. God and everything. I see joy, I see peace, I see goodness surrounding me. I see love in every breath I breathe. I see God in everything. I see happiness, I see freedom. I see the beauty that lives in me. I see perfection in what life brings. I see God in everything. I feel joy, I feel peace, I feel goodness surrounding me. I feel love in every breath I breathe. I feel God in everything. I feel happiness, I feel freedom. I feel the beauty that lives in me. I feel perfection in what life brings. I feel God in everything. I choose joy, I choose peace, I choose goodness surrounding me. I choose love in every breath I breathe. I choose God in everything. I choose happiness, I choose freedom. I choose the beauty that lives in me. I choose perfection in what life brings. I choose God in everything. I know joy, I know peace, I know goodness surrounding me. I know love in every breath I breathe. I know God in everything. I know happiness, I know freedom. I know the beauty
The light of God surrounds us. I am the light.